Hello. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. So that was a long wait, right? So we were busy in sort of another program here. So as you all know, today will be the last day of our online English classes. And so what we will be doing today is we will quickly go through all the lessons that we have discussed so far during the last 7 weeks. So this one being the 8th week, right? So there will be one more session during which we will share with you some of the useful, you can say, websites for learning English. So I don't know if we can, you can say, give more time to discuss, you can say, a topic in detail, because we are quickly going through a sort of a recapitulation and review of the lessons. So just to brush up, just to help you recall what are the things that we have taught so far, what are the things that you have in a way seen as discussed during this live online English classes. Right, get the slide. Okay, so it's a recap and review of the lessons of week 1 to 7. So we started this online English lessons from June 22. Okay, and today is the last day. So the first session that you can say discuss. So Gideon Thargela will discuss all the lessons that he had taught, and I'll be doing, or I'll be discussing, or you can say reviewing all the topics that I covered in my sessions. So verbs and verb tenses. So I discussed with you about regular verbs, irregular verbs, right? How we can identify regular verbs and irregular verbs. So regular verbs we all know. So usually we have the past tense ending as ed, right? We add that, and irregular verbs has a kind of different form. So if you just look at, this is a sort of an example of regular verbs, right? Infinitive, the base form is want, and you have the simple past tense as wanted. Past participle again, wanted, so plant, planted, planted, appear, appeared. So these are, you can say, these are examples of regular verbs. Okay. So regular verbs, you can say create the simple past and past participle by adding a d or ed. Okay. So this is how you can identify. So what we need to remember is, if the verb ends in e, we simply add d, right? Like dance, danced. Okay. So in the same way, if the verb ends in a consonant and y, we change the y to I and add ed, right? Like this one, carry, carried, carried. So this is something I want you to remember. Okay, study, studied, studied. Okay, the same way. So irregular verbs, what you find here, unlike the regular verbs, we have the be form. Okay, was, were, been, so go, went, gone, come, came, come. So it's different, right? We don't add the d or ed, so they take a different form. So again, for irregular verbs, you need to in a way learn. See, they do not follow a regular pattern. So there are 4 types of irregular verbs. Okay. So if you just look at the table, that will be clear. See, cut, cut, cut. So 4 types. Like first type is where you have the base form, past simple and past participle form same. Okay. And the second part, where you have the base form and the past participle similar, whereas the past simple tense is different. Okay, form is different. So in you can say the third type is where you have the past simple tense and the past participle similar, whereas the base form is different. Okay. And the fourth type is where all are different, right? Write, wrote, written. So just to in a way help you just review. Okay. And we learned about the verb tenses as past, present, future. Okay. And in past we have again 4 types: simple, continuous, present, perfect and perfect continuous. And again for simple tense we have simple, you can say continuous, simple present, present continuous, present perfect continuous tense. And for future you have simple future, Okay, future continuous, future perfect continuous tense. So in all we have 12 different verb tenses. Okay, this is something we learn, and I remember giving an example of a story through which I taught you the verb tenses. Okay, it's like learning grammar not in isolation but in context. So I brought a story and I discussed all the tenses based on that, if you remember, if you have watched this particular session. Okay, next we talked about the different sentence types, if you remember. Okay, simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and compound complex sentence. So Gedin's Thargela took sessions on compound sentence and compound complex sentence, whereas I took sessions on simple and compound sentence. So if you remember, before teaching this session, we in a way helped you learn what actually is a sentence. Okay, we talked about a verb being necessary in a sentence and how we can identify a phrase from a sentence. We also talked about clause. Okay, how some type of clause can be a sentence, right, like the independent clause. Okay, and we also talked about subject and predicate being part of a sentence. So from verbs, so we kind of in a way discussed with you how you can say words can be grouped together to form phrase and sentences, phrase, clauses and sentence, and then later on how sentences are grouped together to form a paragraph and then essay, right, if you remember. So sentence types, when we were discussing sentence types, we talked about how sentence can be categorized depending on their structure and function. Do you remember? Structurally, we can have 4 types of sentence: simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. But when it comes to function, the role they play, or how the sentence functions, so it can be interrogative when it's a question, right? You have a statement that is declarative, and when you kind of give command or make a request, you have imperative sentence, we have exclamatory sentence, we have negative sentence, affirmative sentence. So if you remember all this, so if you have missed the lesson, you can say search in Tibet TV's YouTube channel, okay, online teaching, or you can look at the Facebook link. Okay, so we talked about the different sentence types based on structure and function. So in my session, I discussed about simple sentence and complex sentence. So simple sentence is formed by an independent clause, right? So an independent clause that works as a sentence. Okay, a verb is there, right? Whereas in a complex sentence, you have at least, okay, a complex sentence is something you can say at least you have one independent and one dependent clause. Okay, so I have also given different examples. So I won't be able to go in details because we have other topics to cover, or so you can say review, right? So this is just to in a way let you know that okay, yes, these are the topics, these are the things that we have covered, and you feel, if you feel that I'm not very clear about this, so you can always go to the link, okay, or the YouTube channel where you can learn all the things again, right? Or if you have already learned, you can say, oh yeah, we learned about this, right? Okay, next. Okay. So if you remember, with the help of this, you can say writing, or I just talked you about the different types of sentences. So this is something written by a student of class 8. So these days, one of the most played games on phone is PUBG. Okay. Example of simple sentence, right? Do you think this is a good game? Again, simple sentence but interrogative. Okay, then you will find another type of sentence if you go through this, right? Moreover, it is not good for my health and mind because it creates a lot of anger and frustration. So what you see is simple sentence, compound sentence. Okay, so I discussed with you the different types of sentences, taking some sort of write-ups from students, okay, so that you get it clear. Okay, see, those who get addicted to the game become desperate and frustrated when not getting mobile. So how wonderful it would be if people stop playing PUBG, right? Please stop playing PUBG. Again, see, you are making a request, okay? So based on function, right? Okay, and the last sentence, if you look, if you are happy, your loved ones will be happy too. So you will find two different clauses in this particular sentence, isn't it? So this is how we we identify different types of sentence based on structure as well as function. And I remember telling the students to make more use of compound and complex sentences and compound complex sentences rather than relying only on simple sentences, because the more variety you have in your writing will be more appealing, right? As you can say start learning English from grade 6 to 7, see, your standard should increase in a way, okay? You should not always rely on just simple sentences, okay? You have to start writing compound sentence, complex sentences, compound complex sentences, right? Okay, and then we you can say talked about the writing process, okay? If you remember the writing process, so this is something we have been stressing on right from the time we introduced writing process, because this is very important. Whether you are writing a paragraph, whether you are writing an essay or article, a letter, a story, so whatever writing type or writing piece you are doing, so you have to follow the writing process, okay? So let me see how many of you remember the steps. Yes, pre-writing, right? The planning stage, and I told you that you have to spend more time during that stage, pre-writing stage, where you have to think and plan what you are going to write. We also told you about keeping your audience in mind, your purpose behind writing whatever you are writing, okay? So pre-writing, writing, you have then revising. Writing is the drafting stage, okay? Then revising and editing, proofreading, and the final one is rewriting and publishing. If you remember that, so I even tried to follow the writing process not just during the sessions where I help you learn the application part of writing process, but also when I was teaching you different writing types, right? Okay, look at the slide. Okay, writing process. So pre-writing, so getting ready to write, collecting ideas, and then the second stage or process or step is drafting or writing, so putting ideas on paper, then making changes to improve your writing, that is revising, and editing and proofreading, so that is looking for and fixing the errors, and finally when you rewrite, okay, making a clean copy of whatever you have written, and publishing. Not it exactly means printing out, you can share with your friends or others, both in written form or spoken, okay. And I also told you two questions to keep in mind when you are writing something. Why am I writing this? Who am I writing this? So the sense of audience and purpose, okay. And I also discussed with you strategies for pre-writing, okay. So in the planning stage, how are you going to do that? What are the strategies that you can adopt? So brainstorming, right, listing, clustering, mind mapping, free writing where you continuously write, looping, okay, asking the 5 WH questions, that who, what, where, when, why, and how. This is very important when you do writing. Okay, these are some of the strategies, and I remember adopting one of the strategies, clustering in one of the session, and then brainstorming in other. Okay, so this was something I did, and then I remember going through Y chart to help you get an idea about higher order thinking skills, HOT strategies. So okay, I remember a topic, okay, so and then like whatever you are going to write on that, so you just think in terms of how it looks like, how it sounds like, and how it feels like, okay. So that was something we discussed, okay. I need to go quickly. Yeah. Revising checklist. So what are the things that you need to bear in mind when you are doing revising after after you finished revising? Did we really tell? So when you are doing that, what we wanted to see, you have something in your mind, okay. After you do the first draft, you need to think, okay, when you are revising, oh, I wanted to say this, have I mentioned this or not, right? Will our audience understand? Do we need to add, cut, or change something to improve our writing? Okay, we arrange our ideas and points in proper order. So these are thus you can say some of the questions that you need to ask yourself for the revising checklist. And then proofreading checklist, what do we look at? The spellings, right? And whether you have used capital letters correctly or not, have you used proper punctuation marks, any grammatical errors that need to be fixed, okay? And have you used different sentence structure, okay? So these are the things that we discussed when we were taking session on writing process. So next I took a session on essay, right? So you all know what an essay is. So like a sentence, you can say many sentences form a paragraph, so you can have number of paragraphs forming an essay, okay? So what are the parts of an essay? Okay, I'll not go in detail what actually essay. So introduction, body and conclusion. So the three main parts, okay? Introduction, body and conclusion. So body can be of 3 paragraphs or more, right? Or if it's a very simple essay for younger students, it can just be 3 paragraph essay. First paragraph being the introduction part, the second one the main body and the conclusion part, okay? So a standard short essay consists of 5 paragraphs. That means the body should be of 3 paragraphs. And Gedinsa Thargela took session on paragraphs, so he will tell you what are the things that were covered during the paragraph session, the session on paragraph I meant to say, okay? And I remember telling you about the importance of using transition words, okay? So they link paragraphs together. It's very important that you use transition words. So it makes it easier to read. So like transition words like first, second, however, even though, on the other hand, furthermore, in addition to, moreover, as a result, okay, therefore, consequently. So these are all some examples of transition words that you need to use when you are connecting different paragraphs. Otherwise, each paragraph would look as a separate piece, right? And then we talked about types of essays, right? Narrative essays, descriptive essays, expository essays and persuasive essays. And then later on I took sessions on narrative and persuasive, whereas Ge Thargela took sessions on descriptive and expository. So the 4 main categories of writing. So we also had sessions on writing types. So narrative, descriptive, expository and persuasive. So like I told you, 2 of the, you can say, types I discussed in detail, whereas the 2 Ge Thargela discussed. Okay, and then there are other categories also like objective, subjective, creative and review writing. Okay, so narrative writing, narrate, okay, comes from the word narrate, where the author narrates or shares an experience. Okay, and then it can be, you can say, fiction or non-fiction, right? So in a narrative writing has a beginning, middle and ending. Okay, so usually you find narrative writing in novels, poetry, short stories and biographies. And I remember, one session was on persuasive writing. Okay, so where you need to state your opinion and you try to influence the readers, right? And see, we also learned about the 3 ways, right? Persuasive writing can be written based on emotions, reasons or characters. Okay, so usually you find such writing in advertisements, editorials and proposals. And then we have creative writing. So it's very easy, right? Just looking at the words. See, narrative, narrate, persuasive, persuade, creative, create, right? So you're right, the writer's thoughts and feelings in an imaginative and poetic way, okay? And creative writing is different from professional writing, okay? So usually you find such writing in poetry, plays, movies, songs, fictions and non-fictions. And we learned about narratives being 2 types, right? Fictional and non-fictional. And then we can have personal narrative as well, okay? Where you mention or you narrate an event that actually has happened to you, okay, in the first person if you are writing the narrative piece, okay, event or moment in your life, okay, in the first person, right, since it's a personal narrative, okay. So again, like all other, you can say, narrative writing, it has beginning, middle and ending, okay. So all the events are mentioned or presented in clear order, okay. Yeah, and then using specific details, so that's very important, right? And how you feel about the experience, right? And how the events are presented in clear order. I remember narrating my own personal event during our dark stormy weather, if you remember, and we tried to improve that using or applying writing process, if you remember. While taking a session on personal narrative, I also applied the writing process in order to improve my write-up. And then use of transition words. Okay, this was one example. I'm not going to read in detail. A dark stormy night. Okay, how we are using some sort of tools, right? The sound effect. Okay, drum, and then how I have in a way. This was one example we discussed. I'm not going to go in detail. Okay, and then I had session on story writing. Okay, and if you remember, what are the elements of a story? Okay, so story again, it's a kind of narrative writing, right? Either real or imaginary. Okay, so it can be long or short, beginning, middle, ending. Okay, and proper order, the events in proper order. So that is something that is there in, you can say, story or narrative or whatever you are writing, right? So 5 basic elements. Okay, if you remember, character. Can you tell me what are the main elements of a story? Yes? What? Okay, look at the slide. Character, setting, okay, plot, problem, conflict, right, or solution or resolution. So you need to have characters in your story, setting where the story is happening, right? And then you need to think about, okay, see, when you are writing a story, you need to think about who would be the characters of my story, where the story would take place, where, okay, and you need to think about a sort of a problem or conflict, and then a solution. And you need to remember that not all stories needs to be you can say a story with a happy ending. Sometimes it can be a sad ending, or sometimes you can say there can be, as you can say, element of surprise at the end. Okay, then fictional narratives, right, made up story. Okay, so where you use your power of imagination to create. Okay, so folk tales, fables, novels, these are all examples. So fable, where you have animals as the character and there's a moral hidden, right, a moral lesson. Okay, in fables we have few characters. Okay, so examples of fables, thirsty crows, I'll quickly go through. This was one example of a fable that I discussed with you, a story written by my daughter in Tibetan, which I translated, okay, in English. Okay, and after the session was over, I discussed about the protagonist, the main character of the story, right. The monkey was the antagonist, the negative character. Okay, then setting was the thick and dense forest, once upon a time. Okay, when the series of events in the story, that is the plot, right, the elephant going in search of food. And then what was the problem in the story? The elephant had no friends. And what was the solution? Finally he finds a friend. Okay, then writing types we talked about. So I took a session on opinion writing, right, and argumentative writing also. So opinion writing, the word itself in a way suggests it's about opinion, right. So you state what you think and how you feel about something, okay, your point of view, right, and then you have to justify with reasons and examples. Okay, the elements: strong introduction, sound reasoning, detailed and relevant evidence, clearly organized structure, strong conclusion. Okay, so when you are writing a piece of opinion writing, what are the things you need to remember? You have to state your opinions clearly, provide reasons, examples to support, and then using linking words and phrases to connect the opinion and reason. Okay, so reason, think of, okay, I'm going to write an opinion piece. So what are the reasons I'm going to mention so that you are proving your point? Okay, so this was one sample of opinion piece, right. Do you play PUBG? If you do, then I think you should stop playing this game, because I'm stating my opinion. Then with reason, first of all, this is this, not just this. Okay, moreover, so I have given all the reasons to justify. Okay, now you know why I think. See, you are in a way not telling the person to think that way, but you are stating your opinion. Okay, that's why I think people should not play PUBG, right. Your opinion, stating your opinion with reasons. Okay, this was one sample we discussed. Again, persuasive writing, in which writer, now little different from opinion writing. In opinion writing, you just state your opinion. Here you try to persuade the readers, right, the other person, okay, maybe to take an action or to think the way you think, okay. So you try to convince the reader, okay, and see that's why it is little different from opinion writing, okay. Yeah, influence the reader, okay. So you are persuading the reader. You are not just stating your opinion, but you want the other person to think your way, okay, or agree to you, right. So emotions, reasons, and characters are used to persuade the readers. So okay, yeah, these were the types, okay. Using reason, you try to persuade the readers, okay. So these are the things that you can use to justify emotions, okay. Yeah, sometimes characters are also used to persuade the readers or viewers, like you have ads, okay. Celebrities are used in a way in order to convince the viewers, okay. Yeah. So argument writing again, okay, opinion, persuasive. We talked about argumentative writing, so which is a type of persuasive but writing, but here see you have to justify with facts and evidence, okay. And unlike persuasive writing, here you have a rebuttal kind of, okay, counter argument, okay. Common format, okay. Yeah, put your position, your reasons, your evidence, counter arguments. Unlike persuasive and opinion writing, here you have counter arguments, means in a way you try to look through the angle of the viewers or the readers as well, not just your side, okay. What if the reader think that way, what I have to say, your counter argument, okay. And then conclusion, okay. Transition words and phrases, of course, is required, okay. So how you can write an argumentative writing? First thing, you need to make a claim, that is you have to state what you think, then you have to provide evidence to support your claim, okay. Then counterclaim, that means like I told you, acknowledging the other side of the argument. See, the readers or you might think that this is so, but I feel, and you have to in a way counterclaim, right, state. Then rebuttal, right, your response to the other side. Concluding the argument, that is restating and summarizing your argument. So these are the steps for argumentative writing, okay. So how you can do counterclaim? So these are the words and phrases that might be helpful, like some people argue that, or some people might claim that sorry, others think or believe, okay. So rebuttal your point, say state or point what is wrong with the counterclaim by using words or phrases like however. See, others might think that, however, I feel, or nonetheless, even so, okay. These are some of the, you can say, transition word or that might be helpful for rebuttal, right, or words or phrases. And how you can conclude, you have to relate your claim and argument, okay, and don't state your conclusion in the same way you begin or you state. So it can be in a different way, restating, but don't write it in the exact way you have begin, right. As argued, as explained, I feel that, okay, make it strong. And then end with a strong sentence, connecting back to your hook. Okay, this was a sample argumentative writing I discussed with you, right. People should stop playing PUBG. First of all, see, not just justifying. So you will see a counterclaim here. Moreover, it reduces to yet further. See, now you just look at the counterclaim. Many players might argue that this game enhances coordination skills in the players as they need to coordinate their reaction and interpretation of brain with the movement of their fingertips and hands. So this is counterclaim. However, okay, so your kind of rebuttal, this is not the only game where this happens, right. So there are many other games, so you are doing a rebuttal of that, and then finally you are concluding, restating, right. Thus, as stated already, the negative side is, okay, I therefore strongly endorse the fact that people should stop playing PUBG. So this is something I made use of in my session. And then text, structure and craft. So when this session was taken, we looked at all these things, right, poetry, prose, drama in my session, and Gela also have some different types of text, right. So, and then I remember discussing about how poetry, prose and drama are different, right? And then in prose you have narrative and expository, right? The expository part Gedins Thargela discussed. See how poetry, prose and drama are different. In poetry we find lines, whereas in prose we find sentences. In drama you have acts and scenes, right? So in poetry groups of lines form stanzas, whereas in prose group of sentences make paragraphs, right? And in drama you have dialogues, okay, and stage direction that form the script. So in poetry you have beats and rhythm, whereas in prose you have chapters. In drama you have characters and dialogues. So not all poetry have to rhyme, right? And then prose is a regular writing. There's not, you can not that much, you can say creation in a way. Poetry is more, you can say, a creative, okay? Usually you can say prose is a regular writing, okay? So what are the elements of a poetry? Line, stanza, rhythm, meter, okay, repetition, rhyme, theme, okay? So like line, how line is different from, you can say, a sentence, right? A sentence you end with a period, whereas in line it doesn't, right? And then I remember discussing with you that poets have the liberty to, in a way, had the license in a way, right, to break, line break we say, to suit their purpose, to serve their purpose, right? Rhythm, the flow of sound, the beat, and meter, there's a sound, patterns in the sound with stress and unstressed syllables, repetition. I'm sorry, I need to go very quickly because there are a lot to cover, right? And elements of a prose, again quite similar to story, right? Character, setting, plot, point of view, theme, okay? Other than the difference is here, like problem and solution is not there like story. Drama we have acts or scenes, right? Like chapters in a prose. Here we have acts and scenes, and character, narrator, setting, dialogue, stage direction and script, okay? And what are the points to remember? In drama, the character's name has to be written in bold and on the left hand side. A colon is used between the character's name and the dialogue, and the stage direction is written in bracket or italic. The scenes in drama are like chapters in prose, I told you. Then we had session on active listening, right? So what are the three basic listening models? Competitive, passive and active listening. I remember Gedins Thargela and I did a role play on the different models of listening. Do you remember? When Gedins Thargela was sharing something, the way I was not listening and where I was trying to jump in, okay, showing or demonstrating competitive listening. I also demonstrated passive listening and finally active listening, okay. So active listening, so you can look at the session on active listening where you not just listen passively but you respond, okay. Small utterances are required to make the other person understand that yes, you are paying attention, you are listening, you are concerned about what he or she is expressing, and waiting for your turn, right, not jumping in, not interrupting. So these are some of the elements of active listening. And yeah, 3 A's of active listening: attitude, your attention and adjustment, okay. It's very important for active listening. So what are the common barriers to active listening? We also discussed that, right? Environmental distractions, speaker distractions. Sometimes the way speaker is speaking may distract, right? Language barriers, limited attention span will come up as a barrier. Internal issues, you may be going through some internal issues and so you are not able to focus or pay attention. Shift response, right? Personal perspective, sometimes your response shifts up and there can be personal perspective, boredom, knowing the topic already so you don't feel like listening again, right? And being impatient about sharing your own points, okay. So these can be common barriers to active listening. How to do active listening? Paying attention, focusing fully on the speaker, making effort to understand, making eye contact and showing that you are listening, right? And then giving responses by nodding or restating or asking questions relevant to what the speaker is saying, and not interrupting, okay, and ignoring all the other factors, okay, and using small utterances, really, like that, okay. And then whenever you feel like clarification is needed, you ask, okay, and then you need to also observe the speaker's body language, okay, not just listening verbally, and you also try to feel, you can say, keep yourself in the other person's shoes so that you understand how he might be going through. And then we had session on oral presentation, okay. So what are the major steps in oral presentation? Planning, structuring, preparing, presenting, and above all you have to practice before you present, okay. And what are the things that you need to remember? Your purpose and audience, your body language, eye contact, your voice, okay, time limits, introduction, transition words, conclusions, okay. So for oral presentation, all these are very important. And then non-verbal communication, okay, very important part of communication, conversation, right? Your body language, your facial expressions, your posture, gestures, your eye contact, and your tone of your voice, okay. I remember showing you one video clip of Mr. Bean to show the importance of non-verbal communication, where he doesn't speak a word but he is able to communicate, right? Okay, and then we also talked about poetry reading and writing, okay. So where Gideon Thargela discussed about poetry reading, and I took session on poetry writing, right. Even for writing poetry, I made use of writing process, okay. So some of that, like, though I told you there are different types of poetry, but keeping your level in mind, we talked about rhymed poem, narrative poem, haiku, acrostic poem, descriptive poem, okay. And I took a session on acrostic poem, right, how to write an acrostic poem. So because this is quite easy, right, where you have the first or last or other letter spell out a specific word or phrase or a message. I remember I gave one example of one acrostic poem written by me on World Water Day, right, what. And I even, you can say, remember telling you to try making or writing an acrostic poem on your name or your best friend's name or maybe your parents' name, because I did a sort of demonstration on writing an acrostic poem on my name, Tenche. If you remember, teacher by profession, emotional by nature, okay, T-E-A, like that. If you remember that, okay. If not, you can, okay, view the lesson again, right. Yes, what else, okay. So what are the points to remember in an acrostic poem, okay? Word, phrase, message, okay, must be spelled among the beginning, middle or ending letter, okay, not necessarily beginning all the time. Sometimes you can have it in the middle, sometimes at the end, okay. So the letters need to be capitalized, whichever is, you can say, containing the topic idea, okay. Yeah, it doesn't need to be rhymed, right, but you can think of making it rhyme. Yes, and then you don't need to worry about the beat and rhythm with the specific syllable count. And we had session on poetic diction and poetic devices, okay. So the linguistic style, the vocabulary or word choice, okay. So that is poetic diction, right, and this is how you can say poetry is set apart from other piece of writing, okay. So and then you can say the style of writing including word choice and syntax. Syntax means the grammatical arrangement of words in a sentence. So poets can often play with that, right. And we also talked about poetic devices, okay, being form of literary device that are used in poetry. Yes, and the poetic devices being tools that poets use to create, okay, rhythm and enhance a poem's meaning. And some of the poetic devices which you can say discussed rhyme, simile, metaphor, alliteration, personification, onomatopoeia, imagery, rhyme scheme, repetition, okay, and symbolism is also there. So in my session I discussed 4 of the poetic devices: a simile, other than rhythm and rhyme, simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration, right. If you remember, do you remember the poetic devices that we discussed in our sessions? Yes, right. Simile and metaphor, I told you, are the devices that are used for comparison, and the only difference is that in simile you compare two different things by using the word like or as, whereas in metaphor you don't do that. The comparison is directly implied, right. So if you remember, I gave the example of, you can say, the stars twinkle like diamonds in the sky, just to show you an example of a simile, because I have compared stars to diamonds in the sky using the word like. Again, my teddy is as soft as a ball of cotton. See, you are comparing teddy with a ball of cotton, as soft as. Okay, then metaphor. Okay, again a device for comparison, but it is directly implied. The stars are diamonds in the sky. You are not using the word like or as. Okay, the comparison is like what did I tell? Directly implied. Okay, my teddy is a ball of cotton. So here we say one thing is another. We don't say one thing is like another. One thing is the other, right? So both. You can say what you need to remember is simile and metaphor are interconvertible. You can change a metaphor into simile and you can change a simile into metaphor, right? And this was another poetic device we discussed, alliteration, right? Repetition of sound occurs at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. Okay, it's also called head rhyme or initial rhyme. Repetition of sounds and not letters. I remember telling you Philip's farm, PH. See, the letter is P, farm, the letter is F. But what we need to keep in mind is we don't need to focus on the letter but sound. Philip's farm. And if you remember, in most of the tongue twisters, you use alliteration. Do you remember? I remember telling you one of the tongue twister. Betty bought a bit of butter, but the bit of butter was a little bitter. So she bought another butter to make the bitter butter better. See, this is an example of a tongue twister where alliteration is used, the B sound. Do you remember that? She sells seashells at the seashore, like another tongue twister, right? And I told you that alliterations are mostly used you can say in advertisement because they look catchy and it's easy to remember, memorize. Lot of cartoon characters, you can say, use alliteration. Do you remember? I told you Mickey Mouse, sound, mama, right? Mickey Mouse, Peppa Pig, Donald Duck, Shaun the Sheep. So these are all examples of, you can say, alliteration being used, right? So that was also one thing. Okay, let's look at the slide. Yeah, what alliteration does, okay, creating rhythm, music, mood, and it makes it easier to memorize. And there's a lot of fun element, okay, when you use alliteration and when the phrases with alliteration are read aloud. Okay, sometimes when you want the other person, you can say it loud. It often, that's why it's called tongue twister. Okay. Yeah, and then personification, when you give a human character to an inanimate object or animal, right? Like I gave the example, the morning sun greeted me with a warm smile. So I am personifying sun as if sun is a human, right? The morning sun greeted me with a warm smile. Okay, so this is an example of personification. Then we had sessions on vocabulary. Okay, if you remember, I told you vocabulary can be active or passive, right? Active vocabulary we call functional vocabulary because these are the words or vocabulary that we often use when we are speaking or we are writing. Whereas passive vocabulary are those we recognize, right? When someone says something, we recognize, oh, I know this word, right? Or when you read something, you recognize the word. But these words are part of your passive vocabulary because you don't use this often. You only recognize, you know the words, right? And I told you that I requested you to make use of those words so that your active vocabulary is enhanced and enriched, right? So active vocabulary, those words you frequently used, you are more comfortable with, right? And passive vocabularies are those you are not very comfortable with, you haven't kind of mastered those words, that's why you don't use it often. So you recognize, you understand when someone uses these words, right? And yeah, and then we discuss about some of the vocabulary acquisition strategies, right? Using context as a clue. This is something Gideon Sargela discussed in his session and he will be reviewing that. I took this strategy, right? High frequency affixes as a clue and using known root word as a clue to the meaning of unknown. So do you remember we talked about affixes, prefixes and suffixes, right? Prefixes that are added before the word, right? And suffixes that is added after, right? So you can make use of such affixes. And then you can use some other strategies like word family, patterns of forms, word lists and groups, word games, and the most important thing is by reading. Okay, this is, I would say, the most effective strategy to enhance and enrich your vocabulary. I remember Gidin Sargila and I also did some sort of demonstration of activities here, isn't it? So we did some vocabulary games, vocabulary activities where we behaved like students. So the two of us were kind of behaving like students, right, representing you all. So do you remember some of the games? Okay, so the vocabulary strategies, and then like see affixes and affixes, which means prefixes and suffixes. And I took a session on words, right, understanding words, where Gidin Sargela took session on understanding word relationship. Okay, I focused more on words. So categories, content and structural words. See, usually when you say read a sentence or when you speak, usually content words are more stressed, whereas structural words are less stressed. I remember telling you content words usually noun, adjective, adverbs, verbs. So these are the content words. Okay. The structural words, in a way, they help to form the structure of the sentence, like preposition, conjunctions. Okay. Like content word, they have a meaning on their own. Okay. Whereas the preposition, if I say is, okay, you cannot in a way interpret the meaning if is used as a single thing, right? But if I say pen, which is a content word, okay, it's a noun and it can stand by itself, right? Is a you can say a verb, okay, but you can say it doesn't, you can say stand alone, right? So this is how you can identify content word and structural word. Okay. Okay, if you look, so words that have specific meaning, at least 3 letters. Okay, and I remember telling you I and in. Okay, it's not a content word, right, a structural word, but if I add one more n, I and n, then it has a meaning, and so it's a content word. So at least 3 letters should be there to form a content word, but that doesn't mean that all words having 3 letters are content word. Okay, right. So I told you, okay, they are generally stressed. Okay, includes noun, verbs, adjectives and adverbs. Then structural words are function words, okay, just forming the structure of the sentence. They have little meaning of their own, unstressed, lower pitch, okay, and sometimes they are reduced. Okay, yeah, so these are all about the functions and the different types of structural words. And I told you that words can be divided into syllables, okay, which can be open or closed, right? So, and I told you that this is something very important you need to remember. A syllable always contains a vowel. A, E, I, O, U, these are the vowels, right? And rest are all consonant, the 26 letters of the alphabet, right? These are the vowels, rest are all consonants. And I told you the open syllables, okay, end with vowel, often has long vowel sound. So these are the examples of open syllables, okay, I, me, okay, do, we, writer, timer. See, first one is one syllabic, right? I, me, do, we, one syllable word, writer, 2 syllable word. Here I have highlighted I, okay, writer, timer, table, paper, okay, open syllables. Then closed syllables end with a consonant, short vowel sound. And yesterday also I did give a demonstration of how to identify long vowel sound and short vowel sound, if you remember. Okay, pen, yes, did, miss, closed syllable, okay, short vowel sound, pencil, tablet, magnet. Okay, and then words can be a simple, compound, complex, right? So like the sentence, simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, you have words as simple, compound, complex. Okay, and I remember discussing words as like base root when we were discussing about affixes. So root word, we often hear root word, base word, and I told you how to identify root word from base word. See, a base word can stand alone, whereas a root word cannot stand alone. Okay, so if I say actively, okay, act is the root word, okay, on which I am adding the suffix. If you just look at the board, I remember telling you, right, act. So on this word act, if I add the suffix IVE, okay, now this is the root word, right, and we can also say the base word here, but after the suffix IVE, if I add one more suffix LY, okay, now we can't say active is the root word, right, active now is the base word, because we can still break it, right, the root word is not active, the root is act. So act is the root word, active is the base word on which we add the suffix ly, actively. See, double suffix, act, when we add the suffix IVE, it becomes active, another word, right, and active is the base when we add a suffix ly, actively. Okay, I remember giving such examples. Yes, so I think I have, okay, come to the answer. I've taken, I think, 5 minutes extra. So if in a way I have missed something, or like while going through the recap and review, if you feel like there are topics where you need to focus more, okay, which you need to understand more clearly, because see, in this session I have to quickly brush up, review, okay, because I am in a way reviewing lessons of 7 weeks, okay, so it's not possible to go in detail. So what you can do is you can search in Tibet TV's YouTube channel, so you will get all the videos, or you can look at you can say Tibet TV's Facebook page, where you will get all the lessons, okay. We have in a way covered, so today being the last session, Gitinsa Thargela and I have covered 64 lessons, or we have taken 64 sessions, okay, so including the 2 sessions that we are going to take, okay, today. So I really want you to go through the lessons again, so that you can in a way understand in a better way, because in the revision it's not possible to understand everything. Only this is possible only for those who have watched all the sessions, all the lessons, then it would be easy. But those viewers who haven't, okay, or those students who haven't watched our previous lessons, it might be a little difficult. So I would suggest that you go through those links on Facebook page as well as YouTube channel of Tibet TV. So after this, Gitinsa Thargela will do a quick review and recap of all the sessions that he had taken so far. Thank you.